This is Unit 2, Move to Modernity by Samson Persson, Michael Clinton, and Declan Mullen.
The Colombian exchange, some positive effects. Europe gained cash crops like maize and potatoes, natural resources, tobacco, turkey, peanuts. America gained coffee, livestock, grain, fruits, and sugar. Some negative effects were spread of disease, death of indigenous people, and the persecutor of slave trade. Uh, Colombian exchange. As a result of the Columbian Exchange, diseases exclusive to Europe were spread globally, and even today, same diseases such as yellow fever, shingles, and measles uh, can now be found in all continents. Various crops were exchanged along the trade routes. Crops such as potatoes and wheat found new homes in foreign land. Today, those same crops are major staples in large exports in the Americas and Ireland, generating huge sums of money and feeding the large populations of these countries.
The Magna Carta. It it was a document similar to the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution. It was established back in 1215 and was approved by King John. The Magna Carta pretty much put the king's power in check and created parliament. It was meant to break down the absolute dictatorship of monarchs, and what it did, well, first of all, it deformed absolutism, um, and it sort of created the fair law and order that it moved into modern times, where now there's a whole court system when someone's on trial. It also developed a constitutional monarchy. It and on top of this, it inspired other famous documents, like, as I said, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. These were all sort of inspired by the Magna Carta. It was the first document of the type. What effects does the Magna Carta have on us today? As I said, it inspired famous documents which were vital in the creation of the United States of America and in other countries, like our separation from Europe. It greatly affected the world we live in. Um, it rediscovered the concept of representative democracy through parliament. So now, as you see, England has parliament. They have the system where they're still a monarch, but most of what happens runs through parliament. It's voted on. And it also ended absolutism across Europe and stopped it from spreading to the Americas. What it really did is end the absolutistic uh, rulership at the time.
Thank you, MC. The transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade was a triangle trade. It ran from Europe to Africa to the Americas and was one of the biggest trade routes of its time. The transatlantic slave trade, it boosted European countries' economies at the time and allowed them to dominate and colonize more of the world. It brought more diversity into our current day metropolitan society. And it also began the concept of racism that still harshly affects our current day society. And results of this would slavery in the Americas eventually led to the Civil War, which also broke our country apart almost and reformed many United States laws. Oh, a background on it, it started in Eastern Europe and North Africa from 1500 to 1866. During this time period, 10 to 12 million slaves were traded, and there was a 60% mortality rate in the first 2 years of becoming a slave. The effects of this was it set a modern foundation for Europe. Europe made a lot of money off of this, so they were able to make a lot of wise investments to boost kind of their productivity. As I said, it massively boosted Europe's economy. And also, during this time period, exploitation of people and natural resources were used to advance several countries. It also leads to becoming a moral stain on US and European history. People look back often and look at slavery in the US, and it's always kind of a bad memory. And, begins the concept of racism, a problem that still plagues our today's society.
So the Renaissance began in 1400 to 1500 AD. It was probably the event that started the whole chain of Europe moving closer to modernity. It's what moved us out of the medieval ages. During the Renaissance, there was a resurgence of Greek and Roman texts and arts. It began in Florence. Another cause was the Black Death, but the effects of it, where things like the loss of papal power, and it really removed the power of the church. People started to think for themselves. The whole ideal, like the whole concept of humanism, where people in Florence and then which spread to other places around Europe, people started to think in advanced science, advanced other things that they wouldn't have thought about before. The entire worldview changed, and the world could focus on human ideals rather than just sort of taking it as it comes. And people are given new opportunities during the Renaissance, such as Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. How does the Renaissance affect our world today? It affects us. It affected us because it permanently changed the way people thought. It wasn't just at the time. Like we think for ourselves now. The whole concept of humanism is broad in our society today, whereas it was new at the time. And it also brought Greek and Roman culture back into our society. Now you can go to museums, look at ancient art, even art created during the Renaissance. It also forever degraded the power of the papacy. While people still go to church, there are still religions across the world. There's tons of religious people. The papacy isn't exactly in charge. The Pope doesn't rule over everything. On top of this, the Renaissance shot ahead the technology to allow the current world to build off of. As you know, Leonardo da Vinci, he had all these crazy ideas, like he created the original idea for a tank, for scuba gear, for a helicopter, for all these other things that were eventually created by that are eventually successfully created by other future scientists.
Thank you so much. That's been Unit 2, Move to Modernity.
Thank
That's
you.
all for now.
Thank you.